Good evening, everyone. My name is Maggie, and on behalf of Book Soup, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for our virtual event this evening with Mary Dixie Carter in conversation with Mo Rocca discussing The Photographer. We're so excited and grateful that our bookstore can continue to bring authors and their works to our community during this time. We'll be hosting more virtual events in the near future, and you can learn about them on our website, booksoup.com, as well as our social media at BookSoup. Our next event is Tuesday, June 1st with Nicola Yoon in conversation with David Yoon discussing instructions for dancing. To submit a question during the event, please use the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen. If you'd like to see a question on the list, if you see a question on our list that you'd like our speakers to answer, please click the like button. We'll try to answer as many questions as time will allow. Please do not use the sidebar chat to ask a question. Support our bookstore and our authors and purchase a copy of tonight's featured book. Just click on the green purchase button that reads The Photographer directly below the viewer screen. The link will redirect you to our website where you can continue your checkout process. We're also selling digital audiobooks and ebooks through Libro FM and Kobo for those who are interested. A couple of reminders, Mary Dixie will be signing book plates for all books sold tonight. Also, everyone who registers and attends tonight's event will automatically be entered to win a Fujifilm Mini 9 instant camera. The winner will be announced and contacted after the event. Also, to pre-order Mo Rocca's book, Obituaries, please go to the top of the chat screen and click on the link. Okay, a little more about Mary Dixie. Mary Dixie's writing has appeared in Time, The Economist, the San Francisco Chronicle, the Chicago Tribune, the Philadelphia Inquirer, the New York Sun, the New York Observer, and many print and online publications. She's worked at the Observer for 5 years, where she served as publishing director. In addition to writing, she also has a background as a professional actor. Mary Dixie graduated from Harvard College with an honors degree in English literature and holds an MFA in creative writing from the New School. A little more about Mo. Mo is a correspondent for CBS Sunday Morning, host of the Henry Ford's Innovation Nation, and host and creator of the cooking channels My Grandmother's Ravioli, in which she learned how to cook from grandmothers and grandfathers across the country. He is also a frequent panelist on NPR's hit weekly quiz, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. He spent 4 seasons as a correspondent on Comedy Central's The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. He began his career in TV as a writer and a producer for the Emmy and Peabody-winning PBS children's series Wishbone. As an actor, Mo starred on Broadway in the 25th annual Putnam Country Spelling Bee. He is the author of All the President's Pets, a historical novel about White House pets and their role in presidential decision-making. You can pre-order his new book, Obituaries, by clicking the link at the top of the chat screen. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the camera over to Mary Dixie and Mo. Enjoy the presentation. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. Hi, Mary Dixie.
Hi, Mo. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being here to talk about The Photographer.
Of course. Don't I feel lucky because I got to read an early copy. This is not what it looks like. This is the uncorrected bound manuscript. Didn't need any corrections. I said, this thing has hit written all over it. The Photographer written all over it. But it's very, very exciting. It's already received a rave in the New York Times. Tomorrow, a piece is coming out in People magazine. It is truly thrilling to read, and I'm so happy that it's already being met with all these accolades. So well deserved. So first, just so that people tuning in can get their bearings, can you give us as much or as little of the plot as you want, just to orient people? Better you than I. You wrote it, and I don't want to give away any spoilers.
Okay. So Delta Dawn is the photographer. She takes pictures of wealthy New Yorkers and their children. And at the opening of the book, she goes to the home of Amelia and Fritz Straub to photograph their daughter's birthday party. And she falls in love with this family and she becomes obsessed with this family. And the book is the story of her trying to insinuate herself into the family.
Why a photographer?
Why a photographer? So I hired a photographer to take pictures of my two children. And my children are now 10 and 8, but this was a few years ago. And the pictures came back and they were beautiful pictures, but the children's eyes were cobalt blue, and they're not in real life. And I said to the photographer, I'd like for my children's eyes to be their real color. And she said, there is no real color. And I was so struck by that, and it stayed with me. That sentence kind of stayed with me. And the psychology behind it, I guess, that there is no real color and that worldview. So that's how it started.
Geez, and I'm curious, what do you think she meant? I mean, I don't know. I guess I know very little about the science of color. Did she literally mean there is no color?
Well, so I am not positive what she meant, but my interpretation of it, so she may have had a legitimate point about there being no real color, because I think there is something to that, like no one sees the same color the same exact way. Different animals, I learned this recently, because there was a documentary about different animals see colors differently depending on what animal it is. It might see it as red or might see it as green or whatever. But so there may be a point to what she was saying, but I took it at face value. And I also thought, even if there is a point to it, what is interesting is like the disregarding what was there in the first place, like disregarding the real color, like it isn't really relevant. And that's what I wanted to explore in the book, is that like, it doesn't really matter what the reality is, that this woman, Delta Dawn, changes it to whatever she wants it to be. And she has no qualms about it. And when she changes it, then she believes the new version. She believes that the new image, the altered image, is the real image.
Boy, what a terrific spark for an idea. So what section of the bookstore should this book be in? Is it, I'm going to take my own stab at it. I'm going to call it a psychological thriller. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So it is a psychological thriller, and that is, now that I can actually walk into a bookstore and see where it is, that is where it's going in the bookstores. It's in the thriller section. But I didn't sit down to write a thriller. I just wrote the book that I wanted to write, and then everyone else told me it was a thriller. So I embrace it being a thriller, but that is what I learned. Well, actually, after a few chapters, I gave it to someone who made a comparison to the talented Mr. Ripley. Okay. And then by the time I got to the end, I gave it to a few people, and then obviously I gave it to my agent, and everyone, I mean, my agent definitely called it a thriller, and everyone else did too. And so it is.
If I had asked you in the very earliest stages of the writing, what kind of a book are you writing? What would you have said very early on?
You know, I don't think I could have answered you. I don't think I could have, because I was exploring the psychology of Delta Dawn, and sort of wherever that took me. And, you know, one thing I have thought about why I wrote a thriller and why I didn't actually intend it, but everyone's calling it a thriller. And I think it may have to do with being in the theater and the pace that I was used to of like a play and something moving rather quickly. And so the kind of tension that I thought needed to be established quickly and ratcheted up. So that was how I approached it, was the tension needs to keep escalating. And that might be what made it a thriller, but I don't know for sure.
Well, I love how organic right, that process of discovery was for you. That's really, really cool. And, you know, it doesn't surprise me that this comes from your experience in the theater, because it is so lean. It is so dynamic. And it is indeed thrilling to read because of that. I know we want to do a little bit of a reading, or more than a little bit. It's up to you. So why don't we do that now?
Okay. Oh, I'm just going to tell you first where
Please.
this comes in the book. So Delta is babysitting for 11-year-old Natalie. Amelia and Fritz are out for the evening, and Natalie is asleep. And so Delta is taking this opportunity to look around the house. And in this scene, she's in the master bathroom. When finished at the mirror, I turned to take in the magnificence of the bathtub. I'd never bathed in such a tub. I considered how much time I had. It was 10 p.m. The Straubs definitely wouldn't return home before 11, and Amelia had indicated it would be later. If I were to take a bath, I'd have at least an hour before I'd have to worry about their arrival. I pulled my shirt over my head, removed my bra, and examined my torso in the full-length mirror. I still had a flat stomach and a slender waist. I thought about conceiving and bearing a child. Childbirth can alter a woman's body, sometimes permanently. I sat down on an Indonesian stool and pulled off my socks, my jeans, and my underwear, then stood naked in the lavish bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror, savoring a sense of connection and intimacy with the Straubs, and also the power associated with claiming what I needed. I considered the logistics of my bath. I ought not to use a towel for my bath because I might not have time to wash and dry it. They would likely notice a damp towel or a damp tub. Maybe I needed to wait for my next visit and bring my own towel. The thought of postponing the bath brought my spirits down. I spied a damp towel draped over the towel bar and contemplated using that one. I leaned over to smell it and detected Amelia's musky scent. Still undecided, I returned to the bedroom to study the Straub's bed. A dozen pillows of various sizes and fabrics and in various shades of blue covered the upholstered headboard. I wanted to lie naked under their organic cotton sheets. Thoughts of Amelia and Fritz having sex entered into my mind. Maybe they'd stopped having sex after all the miscarriages. Maybe it was too traumatic for them now. Natalie's face appeared in the doorway. Her body lurched back at the sight of me. "Hi, Natalie," I spoke in a calm tone, though a wave of panic ran through me. I spotted a throw draped over a nearby chair. "The craziest thing," I wrapped the blanket tightly around my body. "Just a few minutes ago, Itzhak vomited. I was downstairs and lifting him off the porch. Awful for him, really." I avoided her eye contact. "So all my clothes, I had to clean everything. It was quite a mess, and I'm going to wash my clothes in the machine. I'll just find a towel until they're dry." "Poor Itzhak." Natalie crossed towards me in the direction of the bathroom. I feared she was going to examine my clothing to see if I was telling the truth about the vomit. But she stopped in front of one of her parents' nightstands to check the time. She turned around and walked back towards the bedroom door. Fortunately, Natalie went back to bed rather quickly after a glass of milk. I was mildly concerned about how she would relate what she saw. She appeared to believe me when I explained about Itzhak, but I couldn't be certain. Still wrapped in the blanket, I returned to the master bathroom where I'd left my clothes and sent Amelia a text. "Can I use the laundry machine to wash my clothes? Unfortunately, Itzhak's been ill." "No, did he ruin your clothes?" "I'm fine. Please use my bathroom to rinse off." The response allayed all my fears and filled me with the same sense of euphoria that I'd had earlier. I placed my clean clothes in the laundry machine with detergent. Then, when I entered the master bathroom again, it was not as a trespasser, but as an invited guest.
Very nice. Delta is it fair to say she's obsessive?
Yes, she's definitely obsessive.
And she's a very methodical, unflappable, good liar, it seems like, right?
Yeah. She doesn't have qualms at all about lying.
Okay, well, I just want to make clear the opinions expressed here are not reflective of the opinions of Book Soup or its staff. But I don't think Delta's crazy, and I find her kind of sympathetic.
Good. I'm glad you find her sympathetic. I'm so glad you do. Tell me more about why you find her sympathetic.
There are lines through the book that I underlined that kind of startled me and gripped me, that I could recognize, frankly, maybe in myself in certain ways, but that made her sympathetic. And one of the lines early on was, Delta says, "I was forever hovering on the edge of something." And I found that, as I said, sympathetic and very evocative. Would you call her an outsider?
Yes, I would call her an outsider. I think that's like what makes her tick is that feeling of being an outsider and propels her into this desperate wanting to belong to this family and doing everything possible to insert herself into this family. So she grew up at Disney World. Her parents worked as janitors at Disney World, as you know, and she feels as though she came from the wrong side of the tracks and that she didn't have the right education and the right polish. And she sees that in the Straubs, this glamorous life, and she wishes that was herself. She's educated herself. She, at this point in the book, she's quite polished when she chooses to be, but and she knows how to behave when she's in conversation with someone. She's taught herself a lot, but she doesn't really matter because she still feels like in her gut, she feels like an outsider. It's like an emptiness, I think, inside her of wanting, like low self-esteem. I think it's, to an extreme, low self-esteem.
But on the outsider aspect, what was your, if any, point of connection with her? I mean, how could you key into that? Because I think of you as very connected, right? I don't think of you, we've been friends for a long time, as hovering on the edge of things. How did you key into her?
So I think that everyone feels like an outsider at certain times. And I don't think it really matters if external circumstances warrant it. Like, it might look as though someone doesn't need to be an outsider, but there might, in some cases, I think there's a feeling of being an outsider that does not necessarily go away, even when you technically might be on the inside. You still might feel like an outsider. Whether you are one or not is a question. But I would guess that everyone has experienced that. I've experienced it. And it's, and I've experienced sort of like times when I brought it on myself, brought the outsider status upon myself when it didn't need to be there. And Delta does that. I think she brings that outsider status on herself when it's not that necessary.
Right. And she's also a really good actor, as are
right.
you. And I wonder if that also might be some sort of a point of connection, because she really pulls one over on them, on the family, more than one.
Yeah, she does. Now, that is like part of her, some of it, I think, is her own convincing herself. Like, I don't think she thinks about lying to them. Like, she doesn't, I would doubt that she views it that way. Like, she's telling them a lie. I think she, in the moment, convinces herself of whatever she's going to say, and she really believes it. And I'm sure you know people like this that convince themselves of something, and then they have 100% belief in what they're saying. And so you can't really argue with that, because they've dismissed like the truth. They don't even remember it practically.
Yeah, and I think I didn't write it down, but there's a line in the book about her belief about how memories are, however you remember them, they're legitimate because that's the way you remember them. And I think a lot of people feel that way about memories.
Yes, I think so too. I mean, memories are, so sometimes you'll see a photo of yourself when you're a child maybe, and then you think you remember that event because you've seen the photo so many times. But you're not even sure, like if you remember the event or if you just remember the photo, and it kind of blurs. So yeah, in the same general vein of what you're talking about.
So she also says at one point, when I looked at the photos, she's talking about, I think in this case, photos that she's manipulated, or just maybe photos that she's taken. When I looked at the photos, I felt connected to a world and a life. And I thought, well, isn't that what social media is? Isn't that what Facebook is?
Yes.
It made me feel like this was very timely.
Yes, I think that it's like Instagram and social media and all of these things well, there's also the side of it, which is all social media allows everyone to present themselves a certain way and just show the presentation, and no one needs to know what's behind that presentation. And there's something sort of unfortunate about that, I think. I mean, there's a lot of good things about social media, but the unfortunate part is that the people feeling the need to present themselves and possibly change who they actually are to present themselves even to their friends.
I'm looking at the questions that are coming in, and everyone, you're encouraged to submit questions. We love questions here. Margaret Snyder wants to know, where did you get the inspiration? Excuse me. Margaret, I'll get to you, but Karen Snyder asked, sorry, how did you choose Delta's name, the name Delta Dawn?
Okay, so Delta Dawn, there's two things that played into the name Delta Dawn. One is, the song, Delta Dawn.
Right.
The lyrics to the song felt like there was something about those lyrics where the association felt right for this character. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but it felt right. And then the other thing is that my name is a very Southern name and a double name. And it's, unusual if you live in New York or Los Angeles to have a name like Mary Dixie Carter. And it sort of makes you a little different. And so I kind of wanted Delta to have that. I wanted her to have a name that made her different and made her a fish out of water. That's what I wanted.
Fish out of water.
She has, there's a lot of different ways in which she doesn't feel like she belongs, but that's just one more, is her name.
Right, because she's always having to kind of explain it or laugh about it nervously, right? It's a little bit of a burden. I want to talk about infatuation versus love, because I feel like infatuation doesn't get the credit it deserves. Everyone, I'm going to throw infatuation. I mean, who among us has not considered breaking the law because of like some kind of infatuation, or actually gone and broken the law? I mean, when I think about the people I've been infatuated with and like tracking their movements with like normal like accuracy, like I'm going to be at this location at that moment because he's going to be passing just then. I mean, like that kind of So when she's talking about, at one point she says, my love for her, she's talking about Amelia, the mother of this family. My love for her was as intense as any romantic love I had ever experienced. And she had another point, says, no one had ever recognized me so fully. And again, I found that very human and kind of it's a real and necessary, maybe even force in the world. And of course it makes people irrational at times, but is it just that she's taking it to 11 on the sun?
Yes. I think that's exactly it. I think she's just taking it to like turning it up a notch more than the average person would. Because, yeah, I think what I was hoping for is that sort of what you're saying. I wanted people to feel for Delta, empathize with Delta, and for her not to be like, I wanted her to be more a very extreme version of these traits. But the traits themselves you can find in a lot of people if you were to dilute them down a bit.
Right. Like, it's like, dial it down just a little bit. No, I mean, look, I'm not going to give away anything here, but let's just say I was glad that, Michael Douglas didn't try to drown her in a tub and that Ann Archer didn't shoot her at the end. Right? We all know Fatal Attraction had another kind of more serious psychological ending, but the audiences didn't like it, so they had to go, big with it. You can see it on YouTube. The real ending, which the audiences didn't like because they wanted to see her get killed. But you handle this in a much more sophisticated way. Okay, another. You're such a great, keen observer of behavior, and there's a moment where Natalie, the daughter, is, and this is not giving away anything. Her parents, Amelia and Fritz, don't pay a terrible amount of attention to her. She feels neglected at times. And you write, Natalie told us about her upcoming concert. Amelia listened for a few minutes, then checked her phone, sent a text, and checked her phone again. So I'm wondering, how much of your own natural, understandable anxiety as a parent fueled this?
So this is something that I thought about maybe after the fact. It isn't like, I don't think I was aware of it while I was writing it, but I really am always worried about whether or not I'm a good parent, really wanting to be a good parent, scared I might be making a mistake somewhere. And it's, there's a little bit of anxiety around that. And I thought, after I wrote it, I thought about this Amelia character who's really, not such a great mother, and whether I had made this bad mother as sort of like venting some of that anxiety. I don't know for sure that's what it was, but it did occur to me after the fact. And I think, I don't want to go too far into this because it could become a spoiler, but motherhood and the theme of motherhood plays a significant role in the book, and motherhood, maybe also the abstract idea of motherhood and what people take it to mean, and more than the nuts and bolts of actually being a mother, but this concept of motherhood.
Right. And we should just say for the record, your two kids are just dynamite, and your daughter is a future constitutional scholar. And her aunt for Christmas gave her a little pocket, among other things, gave her a pocket-sized, like, sort of copy of the Constitution. How did she react?
The U.S. Constitution.
and to have a child say that's just a gift. Because I know when I was that age, I would have been like, "What is this?" a lot of this is about assuming things about how other people live, right? I mean, she's a fantasist, and she's a very smart one, and she understands how other people are fantasists, right? Parents who want their children's pictures doctored to make their families look happier.
Right. Yes.
Right. So she understands this. The Straubs, Amelia and Fritz, they're not famous. They're very successful. They're very attractive. But in her eyes, they're kind of celebrities, I think. Right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, your mother, Dixie Carter, beloved, wonderful actor, and your stepfather, the recently departed Hal Holbrook, legendary actor also. Growing up, could you see how other people assumed certain things about them, because they were not only very talented, but also famous?
Yes. I think that, and again, I don't think that I was like thinking about this as I wrote it. It's almost like I can see it after writing it, that the Delta is, they are celebrities to her. Amelia and Fritz are celebrities, and they have this aura like a celebrity has. So I think I was aware that some people saw my mother and my stepfather as larger than life, and that there was some way in which their identity would be fed if they were in the presence of these larger than life people. That it was like, vicarious something, and also, again, like an image of who they are, as opposed to like actually being able to connect with them and see them more accurately. But it's the fan phenomenon. Like Delta is a fan, really. She's in a way, do you know what I mean? Like with Amelia and Fritz, she's sort of like a fan.
And fed is such a great word, because it's almost as if it's a fake kind of nourishment. It's not real, right? But that feeling of being in the presence of that, because the way she talks about Amelia in the book and about Fritz is as if they're these like almost godlike, and that they're going to give her something.
Yeah, and that's, it's too bad when someone feels that way about a celebrity, because often there's something missing in that person's own life. Everyone enjoys celebrities, but if that is like the thing that's going to feed them and feed their identity, then there is probably something missing in that person's self-esteem.
Right. Yep. I'm going to go now back to the questions here. I have no idea what this means. Are you a plotter or a pantser? If that means something to you.
Maybe it's like fly by the seat of your pants versus plot it out ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
Could that be? I've never heard that exact kind of question, but I'm guessing that could be it.
When you come up behind someone and pull their pants down. Is this like some? I was not in a fraternity, so I don't know. But you mean something about writing.
I think it could mean. So I'll answer the question that I think it possibly could mean, which is, did I like just plot out the whole story ahead of time? And no, I didn't. I got into Delta's head and sort of followed her voice. There was, maybe when I was 3/4 of the way through, I stopped and thought about the different directions this could go. But for the most part, I just wrote it. And then I went back and then some things changed, but I did just write it through without making decisions about how it was going to end.
And were you acting out the roles in a sense? Because you are an actor as well. So is that part of the process?
So I think so, yes. So I think I approach writing similar to how I approach acting. And I know that a lot of writers probably do something similar, whether they have an acting background or not. Like getting into the brain of the character and getting into the body of the character. But it feels the same to me. Writing and acting feel like I'm using the same muscles of like, who is this person and what is their point of view, and trying to be in that person's body. So in that way, maybe my acting background has been helpful for me as a novelist.
Yeah. And, this is going to seem like a name drop, but I got to interview Stephen Sondheim, and he said that when he's writing lyrics, it's like he's acting them out.
Oh, really?
The different characters. He said, I said, is it like you're acting? And I thought he'd say, well, he said, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm doing.
So,
different roles.
So when I'm writing, I'm like, if I'm writing Amelia, I'll like hold my hand or turn my head the way I think Amelia might be looking, so that I can find her attitude, so I can find what it is what's her intention. It is like helps to come through through my body to get to that. And that's sort of, I guess that's the same thing Sondheim was saying.
Did your husband and children ever happen upon you when you were doing that?
Probably yes. Probably yes. If I could tone it down though. It could be very small.
Another line that struck me was, it was fascinating to me that an image of a relationship accomplished much of what I was looking for, so that the relationship itself wasn't altogether necessary. That the entire fantasized, because that's what it is, relationship, it was almost satisfied. The full arc of it happened.
Right. Yeah. So that I'm interested in that person, that woman who feels like that. But, with Instagram and things like, and all kinds of social media, I think a lot of people are using the images to satisfy their relationship, their need for a relationship. A lot of people are using social media for that in some way. Don't you think so?
I think so. Apparently, the way that millennials, or maybe it's Generation Z, I can't remember, or Generation AA, because I guess you have to keep going back to the mezzanine level at this point, or whatever. But like, apparently the way that they sometimes date is like they'll like meet each other on one of these apps, and then they'll send each other's images, and then everything will get like exhilarated and hot and heavy, and then they'll sort of get bored with each other before they've actually met. So before you actually go and get a cup of coffee. It's kind of nuts.
It is kind of nuts. Like you don't have that much information. I mean, you don't have that much real information if the whole thing is through Instagram or whatever, Snapchat or whatever it is.
Right. I think that, yeah, Snapchat. Is that still happening? Anyway.
I don't know. I'm clueless.
And so, and when I was reading about her, also reading the book, Delta made me think of, I think it was the census before last showed that for the first time in American history, there were more people living alone than with other people. And, so I think there's a lot of what you describe, not quite the degree happening, with a lot of people who, some want to be alone, but many don't.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, but I guess in the case of Delta, she's using images. I guess one of the issues for her is the lying to herself, like the lying to herself about what she's doing and why she's doing it, and convincing herself of the story that she wants to tell.
Yeah, and look, obviously that part's bad. She shouldn't be doing that. But I would say, but if Delta gave a TED talk on how to insinuate yourself into the lives of a generous couple, I'd sign up for it. She's really good at it. She oversteps, but she's really kind of good at it.
She's very good at it. She's very smart. I mean, I think Delta's super smart, and that's one of the things that I think is maybe admirable about her.
And Mary Dixie, the whole thing, as I said, is so keenly observed. It makes me like so. Have you been? I don't. It makes me a little bit self-conscious. Have you been observing us all, like through all years, really closely and taking notes? Because it's in such specificity.
I've been observing, but just like any time you're thinking about what you're reading and writing, and that's what's interesting to you, you're noticing how people behave, and right?
Of course. And to that point, are there particular? Were you a fan of this genre at all? Were you somebody that read a lot of thrillers?
I wouldn't say I read a lot of thrillers, but I have read thrillers, and I really, really enjoy thrillers. I mean, Talented Mr. Ripley, to mention that again, is, I think I love that book, and Patricia Highsmith. And so growing up, I read a lot of Agatha Christie books, which is a little bit different. But so I love thrillers, but I would say that my reading has been sort of all over the place. It hasn't been like focused on thrillers.
Okay, we have another question here from Claire Jenkins Porter. Can you speak to your process as a writer? How do you handle the doldrums in the writing process?
Oh, the doldrums. Well, it's hard. I mean, there are so many days when you feel like what you're writing is not good. And that's one of the worst things about being a writer, I think, is when you spend day after day writing something and you look at what you wrote the day before and it looks like it's really bad.
Right.
And then you just have to keep working on it, because it's like, that's almost, you have to go through that to get to the better material. You have to write the bad material, I think, to get to the better material. So it's not wasted time, but it often feels like wasted time.
Alexa, play You'll Never Walk Alone. Oh, no, Alexa, stop. Sorry. We started to. I don't know which version she was going to sing. Sorry. Okay. Another line that I picked out that I related to. After a phone conversation, I would create images in my head of the client and the family members. This is not crazy behavior to me.
No, I've done that before. I've tried to picture what someone looks like based on a phone conversation. Have you ever done that?
Oh yeah, totally. But I used to love to read the New York Times and imagine what the reporters looked like. And they had this architecture critic named Herbert Mouchamp. And I just was like, oh, he has to have a beret and like a long cigarette and be sitting on like this little rickety stool outside of a cafe, like writing his articles. But I would totally imagine what the different writers look like. And people on the phone, And
then sometimes you're like so wrong. Like you've pictured, especially if you've had like a number of conversations over a period of, a year, let's say, and you've had conversations with the same person because maybe they don't live in this city, and then you finally meet that person, and the whole time your image was so off. It's startling.
Right. And you want to say, why don't you look like that person? Why is your hair not red? It's supposed to be.
But I guess so Delta prides herself on, like, she knows what the people are going to look like. She really gets it right most of the time. She hears their voice, and there's some way in which she's able to project the image of what they look like based on that voice, or based on, the conversation, the content of it.
Right. She's that smart. And I was going to ask you about, do you like kind of fun with sort of casting this as a movie? But in fact, it is being developed into a TV series. As right now it's being developed, and I can't share all the details about it because it hasn't been announced yet, but I'm very, very excited about it. And I'm very excited about the people who are working on it. And as soon as I can say more, I will say more. Excellent. That is very exciting. Okay. Is the photo on the cover you or someone else? She looks very similar to you. Tara asks that. I haven't seen the final cover. So.
Oh, okay. I'm going to hold up the cover.
So
yeah, it's not me. It's not me. It's an image, and I don't know who it is, but it's not me. But she does have, similar coloring to me, but yeah, a couple of people asked me that.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, that's funny. Okay, and I'm just scrolling through these questions. There was one I was going to get back to. Oh, it was Margaret Snyder's question. Where did you get the inspiration for Delta Dawn's character? I think we covered that, but is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Well, no, it came from that conversation. There is no real color conversation. And then, moving forward with Delta's psyche. So I think I covered it pretty good. At another point, we're talking. We talked a lot about how Delta is a fantasist, but it takes one to know one, and she really recognizes this impulse in a lot of the families she's dealing with. At one point, she says, I would have to create a birthday party that never happened. It's often what she's doing, because kids sometimes are crying and recalcitrant at their own parties that their parents have spent lots of money on, and then at another point she's talking about sort of the image that's sometimes untenable that a lot of these families are projecting. She says it all comes crashing down, it all comes crashing in on you. That can happen when you have too much, like some people do. Obviously without naming names, but is that something that you've observed? This kind of strained kind of drive to present these images that might allow somebody like a Delta to exist and feed that. Yeah, like it all comes crashing down, it all comes crashing in on you. I have observed that. I mean, there's not like, there's no one person that I've observed it in, but I have observed. So part of it is that I've observed it, and part of it is Delta's interpretation of the world and her worldview. So some of it, she is very observant, but then she sort of twists it a little bit to fit the point that she wants to make.
Well, I want to remind everyone to click the order the photographer now button, and I also want to tell people they should, of course, buy their book from Book Soup, but that you also recorded the audiobook.
Yes,
and
I did.
Did you like doing that?
I loved doing the audiobook. It was such a joy to do the audiobook. It was so much fun. I had the best time doing it, and I was thrilled that I had the opportunity to do it. So please, if you buy your book tonight, but also in addition, maybe you might want to buy the audiobook too.
And I can assure everyone, having seen you act multiple times and having acted with you, that it's well worth the price and the effort to listen to you read the audiobook. I have no doubt. And there's also a message here. All those who register, if you're here, you're registered for tonight's event, will automatically be entered to win a Fujifilm Mini 9 instant camera. The winner will be announced and contacted after the event.
Well, and then I also wanted to show Mo's book, which is going to be out in paperback, Obituaries. So you could, I think the link is there to buy Mo's book too. And you could probably buy it in hardcover now, or you can buy it, pre-order it for paperback.
Thank you very much. And Mary Dixie, there was one other question that came in, which is a good one. What are you working on now? What is next? Or can you tell us?
So I am working on another novel. It is too early to share too much about the other novel, the new novel, but it's a female lead and protagonist, and some of the same themes will probably reappear in the second novel, but it's certainly not about a photographer.
Okay. All right. Well, I have loved talking to you, and I told you I loved reading the book, and I'm big congratulations to you. It's just a wonderful achievement and a great read.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here and doing this, Mo. It was such a joy for me.
Of course. And Maggie, did you need anything from us?
Hi. Hi. Well, that's a wrap on our presentation. Thank you again to our guests and to all of you who tuned in this evening. We greatly appreciate everyone's time and your support of independent bookstores. Support our bookstore, please, and our authors, and purchase a copy of tonight's featured book. Just click on the green purchase button that reads The Photographer directly below the viewer's screen. If you'd like regular updates on our upcoming events, please make sure to follow us on Crowdcast and subscribe to our newsletter. Have a great evening and stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.